Before we get into the main topic of today's upload, I thought I would pretty briefly just kind of explain what is going on. I have been MIA from YouTube for almost 10 months at this point, with very, very little activity since then. I am back into the gym and even uploading to YouTube as I get back into the routine. As far as most of that time, I was literally unable to even leave the house, let alone actually work out or go to the gym, which took a really big toll on me. This session I recorded at the gym was a really good session for me. I tried out some new routines into my split, and I have a lot of hope for the future. I decided to come back and start off with some more easier and basic movements as I try to get my strength at a minimum to where it was prior to my break from social media. It will take a while to get there, but I am hoping within a few months that follow, I can zone in onto my diet and workouts. Then I can get there sooner rather than later. Because of some injuries, more than likely, it will be a couple weeks yet still before I can actually get back to doing deadlifts or squats of any kind, and even more exercises that specifically require more force or pressure on my feet, which I will be explaining why here in this video. My balance was and is still pretty messed up from all of the stuff that I was going through in regards to after the time I was taking my break from all the YouTube and Instagram and all that kind of stuff, and has been making the process of returning just that much harder, but it isn't impossible. I'm trying to stay optimistic, and since I'm doing everything in my power to do what I need to live as long as I can and get as strong as I can, I refuse to give up my dream. I hope you guys will stick with me through this. Back in biceps was an amazing session for me on this day, and I'm super excited to get to the rest of my muscles and put in that same amount of work. Hey everybody, what's up? I hope you're all having a great day, and thank you so much for clicking on my video. Making this video is something that I have really wanted and, to be honest, needed to do for a few months now, if not even longer. If you were subscribed to the channel before, then you might already know that I have not been uploading for quite a while now, which will be the topic of today's video. This has been a really hard uphill battle for me physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. I've been going through some pretty hard times, but I am finally ready to put that behind me, and from this point forward, I will be starting over what I originally was setting out to do. In 2022, I truly fell in love with the gym, and over time, I began losing that passion that I had. I was going through a lot, and I was doing a bit of healing from some losses I had been dealing with, along with trying to do everything I could to be successful with where I was at in life at that current time. I started going to the gym and started noticing some results. It was very slow, but it was very steady. I really enjoyed that part. I really like going to the gym and being able to make friends. I've never been a super popular guy, but going into the gym and seeing the same faces over and over and seeing what those people are going through. You start to develop a relationship as you pass people in the gym. It's, in my opinion, one of the safest and most practical places to meet people, which I really do enjoy. I have changed a lot in these past few years. I used to smoke. I was buying alcohol and drinking and partying way before I was ever legally able to purchase any kind of booze, liquor, or anything like that on my own. So a few years ago, I had gotten into a situation where I had to pretty much stop all the nonsense I was putting myself and my family through. It was just not good for any of us. That was one of my biggest motivators when I started to change who I was and what I was doing and how I was behaving, and it has been wonderful. Every single day of my new life has been better than my old way of living, even on my worst day. My worst day now is 10 times better than my best day beforehand. So back to the story, I was actually dealing with a whole bunch of personal issues during the fall of last year. I started getting my hours cut at work on top of that. I started making about just as much as I was spending, if not more, and I was put into a really bad spot because of the budget cuts at the job, which is still something that still happens even to this day. That started really dragging me down, and after that, it was pretty hard to stay motivated. I ended up not eating as well well and really losing focus of what and where my goals were. That started a chain of events that has made the past year one of the hardest years of my entire life this far. I was gaining weight, and by this time in the middle of fall, I have almost completely stopped going to the gym and at best just was maintaining my muscle mass. But then in December, I was dealt a blow that is still fresh in my mind to this day and is very hard to deal with at times. Because of my uncontrolled diabetes, I had to go to the hospital. I was already dealing with an infection on my right foot on my big toe. It was, however, an infection that almost healed and had been getting treated and seen by a doctor for the past 2 months. I was taking antibiotics, I was going to the doctor, I was doing everything right, and then one afternoon during work everything changed forever. I had a very dull but very irritatingly sharp, almost throbbing sensation coming from my toe, and I had no idea what it could have been from. I thought it was nothing. Literally, just nothing. I've had nerve damage, otherwise known as neuropathy, for the past 5 years, if not even more at this point. So at most, I thought that it was just that, and maybe my foot was flaring up, which is a very common occurrence. I ended up leaving early that day. I went home, I took a nap, and that's when the beginning of a nightmare truly started in my life. I woke up with my big toe on my right foot, probably about 4 times its original size, super swollen, and it was clearly dead. There was dead skin and pus going everywhere. I could literally smell the fluids off of my foot with my socks covering my feet, and I even doubled up and put a second pair on over the first pair because I didn't want people in the waiting room at the hospital to get grossed out or even just more sick, and I know I am not kidding. From there on out, I was in the hospital for just over 2 weeks. It was the day before Christmas when I finally got back home. That was a very crazy time for me. I was super depressed, I was super anxious, I was very insecure, I was self-conscious more than ever, and there was a lot of guilt, a lot of pain, and a lot of tears. That was a really, really hard time for me. The hospital or emergency room I went to that is near my house, which is super popular and well known, as I do live in the capital of my state, and even though I needed my amputation done for my toe, they wouldn't do it there at that hospital, even with more than enough staff and doctors who are overqualified for that procedure, but yet they chose to send me about an hour away. I had to go to Ann Arbor, Michigan, out to the U of M hospital, and I guess it worked out. They treated me pretty good out there, and a few of the staff were actually really nice. Anyways, when I got back to the house, I wasn't able to do much. I was pretty much only able to lay in bed or sit in a chair for 2 whole months. My foot was really swollen and I had to keep 2 bandage wraps on it at all times. I had to get around with crutches and I had a boot on for protection. I couldn't even drive for 2 months, let alone work. So bills kept coming and problems quickly followed. I got real behind on my diet, I got behind on bills, and at this point I had already had my car totaled, so even when I was able to work again, I had to get rides from my family members, which I fortunately still do have around, and they are able to help me out as much as they can, which I seriously think is the biggest blessing I could ever ask for. But as far as building for myself and becoming independent on my own, it really hurts. Our egos can be a big downfall for some of us, and sadly, my ego never let my brain hear the end of how disappointed in myself I was all the time. It was all the time that I would think about how stupid I am or was or whatever. I could never just let myself breathe. I was trying my best to stay optimistic, but it was honestly really hard. Anytime any problem arose, it just felt like the last thing I needed in that moment. So I get back to work and things are not getting much better. I came back to the workplace and they had cut budgets even more. Some of us, including myself, were getting as low as 10 to 15 hours a week, which even after all 3 of the surgeries and everything I had been through, it was just not enough. And I've been working my butt off to get back to full-time hours at my job ever since. About 6 weeks ago, I was offered a full-time position that was a whole lot better for me, and thankfully the last 2 weeks at my job have been a lot better. I am getting those promised hours again, finally. Things are finally starting to look better for me, and I needed this because after a month of me coming back to work, I ended up getting 2 broken bones. I broke my foot in 2 different spots from the amputation I had. They actually needed to take off more than the toe, but a little bit of the bone behind it as well. And because of that, I will easily be able, and most likely will continue to get these stress fractures, at least for a few years. But I did end up going to a specialist, and once my foot is all healed from the broken bones, they will try adjusting my diabetic shoes, which I do get every year. That way I have as best a chance to not break any more bones, at least more likely not to than I would if they didn't try to adjust the shoes, if that makes sense. But it's been almost an entire year already since I was active on YouTube. I have been more active on my other social media accounts like Instagram, which, by the way, please go follow me on Instagram. My username is subflextaylor, and that's my username on Snapchat and Twitter and TikTok as well. I don't really use all of them all that often, but go follow all the social media platforms you personally have. Again, my username is subflextaylor, and those will be in the description. As far as my workouts go, I can't go 100% to failure right now or go as hard as I possibly can, which still slows me down for a few weeks, but it doesn't mean I can't at least make some progress, which is super important for a lot of us. Any work is better than no work. I will be going to the gym and adjusting my workouts over the next few weeks. I will be seeing what works for me and what I enjoy, what lists I want to incorporate into my split, figuring out some goals I can set and work on, some short-term stuff to lead me down a further and longer path of success when it comes to working out and my diet. I do know that whatever happens from here forward is completely in my hands, and I do intend on making sure that the things I have the power to control will be done to the best of my knowledge and ability. This includes taking care of my diabetes, taking care of my body by working out as best I can, putting the best foods and choosing my foods smartly and considerably, and doing the best job possible I can at my workplace, and learning as much as I can about the things in and around my life, and learning as much as I can about the things I am interested in. That might help change my life for the better, even if it's just a little bit. I am in a lot better place than I was after the things that occurred happened to me, and I am nowhere near where I want to be. Believe me. I hope you all will come with me on the journey and my come up. I know that things will only be getting better and better, and myself, I know I will only keep on getting bigger and better and stronger, smarter, happier, and ultimately more successful. That's all I got for today's video. Peace.